Hey everyone, welcome back to the Vibrant Life Source channel. I hope you are doing fabulous today. And I want to introduce a little special series I'm going to do for Vibrant Chats. So it's called Leveling Up Real Talk About Perimenopause with Jill and LeAnn. So this is another coach that I met. And long story short, her and I decided to collaborate and to do a 5-part series about perimenopause because let me tell you, I'm in the thick of things and it's just not talked about. Yes, there's a lot of information, but there's not a lot of conversation about it. And so her and I decided to do a series on it. And what we're using is this book by Dr. Stacy Sims. And this book really talks about what happens with the female physiology and about our cycles and about perimenopause and just how all of that comes together. This book has been really a lot of great information. And so you will find in the series that we utilize that, the book, we reference the book a lot. But a lot of it is just her talking about what's going on with us. So it's a 5-part series. And so what we're going to do is today is the first episode, and we just kind of talk about what's going on with us. Why are we doing the series and what's going on with us individually? And then later in this month, you're also going to see episode 2 drop. And then probably every month I'll drop another episode. So be sure to, I love to build some conversation. So comment in below about what you think and about what maybe you're having your own experience. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on further episodes. And then also, I want to do a shameless plug of my new virtual platform. Dink, right there. Yeah. Make sure that you check out my new virtual platform, because if you want to have one-to-one training with me or you want to join my monthly membership, hello, videos galore, all kinds of awesome stuff for only $29 a month. Or if you want to get some fabulous recipes, not sure what to make for dinner, go check out my platform. More things are coming. So I got some exciting news coming. All right, everyone, here we go. Check out my episode with Jill Whalen, and she's a trainer. And here it is. Have a fabulous day. Bye. All right. Hey, everyone.
Hey, hey.
Welcome to Leveling Up Real Talk about Perimenopause with LeAnn and Jill.
Hey.
And I'm excited. I'm excited to get started. Are you?
Yes. We've been talking about this long enough. Let's get started. Let's do it.
So, welcome everyone. This is episode 1. And we really wanted to kind of start kind of like in the beginning. So talk about how it all started. So
the galaxy.
We met on LinkedIn.
We did. And
it was me. I reached out to you.
You did. You said, hey. And then I looked you up and said, oh, look at that. Look at how similar our backgrounds are. I was like, all right.
And then we decided to talk.
To chat. And here we are.
Before you know it, I don't know. I mean, I still don't remember the conversation about how we actually started admitting that we're both in perimenopause.
I don't either, but it just seems so easy now, like to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like I just don't hold back anymore.
We just connected, and it was just like one of those things that we just started like divulging, and it was like, and we were, you're easy to talk to.
As well as you.
And so we just decided to share each other our life stories and like, in a 40-minute conversation.
And just become friends. Zoom is amazing for that.
Yeah, right. It really is the power of LinkedIn. And I think we both, where we really connected was we were both so frustrated
Yeah.
by the lack of information. Let me rephrase that. I think there's information, but the lack of conversation that's happened.
Communication about it.
Right. Because, and I think, I mean, I'll tell my story and I know you'll tell your story
Yeah.
too. I, I know nothing. You know, and I think that was a big frustration point for both of us.
Yeah.
And understanding what's going on with our bodies, these bodies that we, and for lack of a better term, this is our business of what we do,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And understanding it and realizing that it doesn't have to be, you know, what either like my mom's experience was or something.
Yeah. Or just, it doesn't have to be what it was for even you or me, like confusing and like lack of, because it is our business. And like you said, we'll tell our stories, but I felt like out of control, like what is happening and why is not even understanding why it was happening or why I didn't have control anymore. And it was frustrating and it was sad and it was, like just,
Totally.
yeah, it was just not a good experience.
No.
That, and I think we both agree that it doesn't have to be that way and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be this,
Mm-hmm. Right.
this, dreaded thing that's happening, right? It happens to every woman as they age.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. And to not understand it is, it's just not acceptable anymore.
Right, right. So why don't you start? Why don't you start with your story about what's been happening and what, you know,
Okay.
what's happened.
So I can recall a conversation that I had, it was probably about 8 years ago, with a woman, amazing woman, took my classes, was a client, was part of my my group program. And she said to me, Jill, when I turned 40, something changed and I'm just not the same. And I was like, oh, come on, like, no way, like, whatever, you're just not doing what you're supposed to do. Right. Because
Right.
almost 20 years of education tells me you should be exercising more, you should be cutting out calories, you should be, working out like a man.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sort of like rolled my eyes in the back of my head. I was like, whatever. And then several years later, I turned 40 and I was like, see, nothing's changed. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And I was fine. And then I turned 41. And like 3 months into being 41, I was like, this is what she's talking about. Like, where did this belly fat come from? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really, for me, that was the big thing, because I'm a fitness instructor. I'm getting up on stage and I'm, telling everyone how to get fit. And it was obvious to me, as well as to other people, that I had gained weight. Where like, and I was doing everything the same, right? I was
Right.
teaching my classes, I was eating well, and it was, there was sometimes, which now that we're reading our book, I understand why certain times were worse than others.
Mm-hmm.
But I would, get up and put the microphone on in class, and I like look in the mirror and like psych myself up by going like, suck it in. And like, like, so some days were just like really I was in my head, and obviously I didn't feel like I was me in my body. And last year, I during COVID, what really sort of kicked this off, that I figured out where I was at, was my husband got on the elliptical, fixed it, got on it. Like the next day was like, oh my God, I did the elliptical, I lost 2 pounds. And I was like, that's awesome. I'm going to do the same thing. And I got on and I did the elliptical. And the next day I get on the scale and I gained 2 pounds. And I'm like, what is happening? This is not right. How is that possible? You know? And so I started looking into it and discovering, like, oh, women in their 40s, probably shouldn't be on the elliptical for an hour, because it causes so much stress. and that stress creates inflammation.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh,
Right.
like,
It
and what,
basically took all of your training
exactly,
and just
out the window. And,
right.
and for me, I was like, okay, if I don't know this after
Mhm.
20 years, and all of my education is saying exercise more, go harder, burn more calories. If that's not what the case is, if I don't know that, how is any other woman going to know that?
Right.
Just, somebody who's not getting this information and is just going about her life, trying to, cyber school her kids and work from home and take care of the house and do all these other things. And
Right.
if I don't know this, how will she know that? And that's really what pushed me, propelled me down this path. And which is why it's easier now to talk to somebody and say, yeah, this. And as I did more and more research, I took a course here and I took a course there. And I'm like, oh, so you mean the fact that I haven't been able to sleep for like 8 years? That's tied to this as well. Oh, that like I can't eat the same foods that I used to eat. Oh, like, and it just all started to make sense.
Right.
And I want to share it with everyone.
Right.
I
I
I
think
do.
because we learn from each other. I mean, our greatest teachers are other people, you know?
Yeah, it's been a new education.
Right.
But it's been like frustrating, absolutely. But at the same time, it's like, oh, this is why.
Mhm.
And that, okay, I can do something about it. And
Right.
that's been really rewarding and really, really good.
Right. 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 Well,
Tell me your story, LeAnn.
mine's
I
is a little different in that.
Right.
So when I got to do math now. Ooh,
Oh,
brain fog.
yeah,
When
exactly.
I was like 41,
There it
I
is
had
again.
a hysterectomy. Okay. I had fibroids. And let's be honest, it was more elective. I could have dealt with it, but I chose to do it. And so,
Why did you choose to do that?
couple reasons. One, I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And it had sent things really all over the board because I was like, I used to be clockwork up with my cycle, like, blah.
Hmm.
And then it became all over the board. And they said, oh, well, let's change let's put you back on the pill and let's, change it. And that made things angry.
Hmm. Well, why wouldn't it? I mean, like,
And I was just
she's.
like, and I'm just like, this is just something's not right. And so finally they
Hmm.
did ultrasound and they're like, oh,
Hmm.
you got some fibroids,
They're like, oh,
which
they're like,
find out is runs in the family. So fibroids and endometriosis runs in the family. I'm like, oh, again, that goes in the box, would have been good to know.
if somebody had talked about it.
Right. And so I met with the surgeon and he said, and we watched it for like a year. And
Okay.
finally they said, okay, if you want to do, so there's a couple different procedures. There's the traditional, they do the big
Hmm.
incision, you're out for like, feels like eternity. Or
Yep.
they have one's called the Da Vinci. And
Yeah.
it's less invasive. And they do about 1 inch.
Little. Yeah.
Yeah. And they said, if you want to do the Da Vinci, because I was like, I got to get back to work. Nobody got time to be sitting in bed for months. So
Yeah.
they said, well, then Da Vinci is for you. And
The
they
way to
said,
do it.
you've got a window. If the fibroids get over a certain size, we got to do the zip,
Hmm.
the full blown. And so that was actually the big one. I was just like, I was getting close to that point.
Yep.
Luckily for me, I know a lot of women have major issues with fibroids.
Yeah.
I wasn't having that big of an issue. And I think it was partly their positioning. They they were causing a ruckus, but it wasn't affecting my day-to-day life.
Gotcha.
Got it.
Right.
So anywho, I had the partial hysterectomy, which means they left the ovaries.
Yep.
And so you and I talked about this, and this was
Yes.
this is what prompted us, fueled our fire. Was I went to my post-op.
A hot flash fire.
I went to my post-op, and my surgeon was a male, and I go in and I was like, okay, he goes, everything looks great. You did great. You're good to go back to work. And I said, okay, good. So, so what's our conversation now? Because, do we need to talk about, hormone therapy and he looks at me perplexed.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, no, I fixed it. I took it out.
Because that's normal to lose a body part and it be fixed. It just doesn't affect anything else.
Yeah. And I was like, huh?
It's fixed now.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so
really?
And so I kind of went about my business, and I'm like, And it wasn't until, and I don't know, and I had signs, but yet I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and he told me, he goes, and you're still going to have a cycle, obviously. And he goes, but you'll still have the symptoms, but you just won't have. And I have no clue when anything's happening. I have no clue when anything is happening at all, which I've heard is somewhat common. But anyway, so about a year after.
It's common, but should it be? Is it normal?
But then about a year later, I was just like, and I kept trying to go to different naturopaths and doctors and, and I'm just like, and I finally found this naturopath, and I'm just like, listen, something's just not right. I had a hysterectomy. I have low energy. And he said, you had partial hysterectomy? And I said, yeah. And he goes, did they do any hormone therapy? Did they even check? I said, no, never at any time. At no time during that whole process of when they found the fibroids, at no time did they ever check my estrogen levels, ever. And so, and finally, this naturopath was like, come again?
He's like, what?
And so he checked them, and my estrogen was like ridiculously low. And so luckily he's like, well, you don't have to go like on a patch or anything. He goes, and I was able to do a total natural form. Basically, I took I forget the name of the product, but essentially it's like a ridiculous amount of maca root. Worked brilliantly.
Oh, a natural thing.
Imagine that. Worked brilliantly. Got everything back up into normal levels. I felt normal again. And he said, the naturopath, and he goes, you may not realize it, but you were probably in perimenopause. Because by the time I saw him, I was like 42.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, what's your understanding of it? And I said, well, my mom, her aunts, they all had full hysterectomy. So they never went through menopause naturally. And I said, on my dad's side, my grandmother's passed away, so I don't know. And he goes, so you're kind of going blind. And I'm like, yepper. And so,
like everyone, really.
Right. And he said, and he goes, and your body may not be giving you the cues.
Mm-hmm. Well, and now partial hysterectomy, your body's not giving you, or you've now taken literally taken a piece out of the equation of what.
And so I went on for I'm 47 now. And so it went on for okay. I would say in the last, and I've since changed naturopaths. And, she's done blood work, and she goes, listen, this isn't a perfect scenario. She goes, we're just kind of getting a rough estimate. Mm-hmm. But she goes, you're getting close. She goes, you're inching closer because the symptoms are starting to increase. Right. And so, I mean, I will get the hot flashes at night every now and then, not all the time. Yes. The midline bulge.
Mm-hmm.
the realizing that the fatigue, I don't know if you get the fatigue, but I get, I mean, fatigue. Um, my husband would probably say I'm moody all the time. But I've just noted that exercise for me is different.
Yeah.
Right.
And it should be.
Yeah, right. And it's, and so things have changed. And I've noticed, especially since, like, for you, for COVID was this last year, really was this turning point of me realizing that, okay, I'm not on the outskirts of it. I'm in it. It's like full blown, welcome to the
Happening.
show. It's happening. It's like next stop, menopause.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the path, right?
Yes,
That's the way it goes. But,
it is.
you
But
know,
at the same time, and here's the thing, I think, women, I think both of us were, we get infuriated when we hear that conversation like I had with that surgeon. We could have
yeah,
like a whole episode
just
just,
that.
but it was like understanding that, this is my body. I know if no one knows your body better than you do.
Right. Yeah. And I think it ties into this,
Right.
that women, even now, are sort of like dismissed, not, I mean, not sort of, not included in the conversation, or like your doctor, I took it, I fixed it. Well,
Right.
you're not God, man. You did,
Right.
you did something, but that's not. And like your first naturopath said, you
Right.
probably didn't need it, but it was, that's what that's what that doctor's education was. I can fix it by taking this out.
Right.
But
It's the Band-Aid approach. It really
yeah,
is the Band-Aid approach. And and I think that's why each of our stories, although somewhat different, are similar in that we, I don't expect you to have answers for me, and you don't expect me to have answers for you, but it's just coming together and having a discussion and go, hey, I'm not alone.
yeah.
I'm not losing my mind. It's like stuff that's really happening.
Right. Isn't that I think is one of the biggest things.
And and then kind of coming full circle, I had heard a podcast, and the guest, I follow I follow a lot of podcasts, and it just so happens that on said podcast was Dr. Stacy Sims, and she was talking about women are not small men, that women should exercise, women going through perimenopause, which as soon as she said perimenopause, I was like, what? I nearly crashed my car. I was like, what? And I was like, who is
Which
this?
is distracted driving
Right.
anyway,
And I
because
was like,
brain
who is,
fog.
and literally I had listened to that podcast about a week or two before you and I met. And I looked her up on Instagram. I'm like, who
Yep.
is this chick? And she had this book. And I was like, what? There's a book?
Yeah.
And I got it, and I had started reading it, and then I met
Yep.
you, we had our conversation, and I was like, girl.
You need to read it. And I ordered it that day, I think.
Right. And so then, and this, and again, and this is where how all of this came to be. We
Yep.
were like, what if we just talk about our experiences, what's going on in our body, share what we're learning and experiencing, reading the book.
Yep.
And here's the thing, I think there's a lot of information in the book that as a health and wellness professional, I'm like, yeah, of course. But the way it's being presented, there's many ways I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
why didn't I know that?
Yep. So it's like, as I said, this last year has, forced me because of my own situation. There's a whole bunch of doctors that I follow. And the first time I heard that women are not small men was actually not from Dr. Stacy Sims, but it wasn't put in that way, right? The first time I heard about it was from Dr. Jade Tita, and he's a naturopath, and he said most research in exercise science is done on men, and not just any men, but young men. And I was like, oh my God. And then when you told me about this, women are not small men, I was like, yeah, okay. Like it's like fortifying, like, okay, these things that we believed, right? You're not a man. You shouldn't train or eat like a man. You should train and eat like a woman athlete, like you are. And of course it makes sense. But when you're in it, right? Yeah. And you have to hear it from a different way or from someone else, because it's not what we've been hearing for so long.
And I think, for people that want to go buy the book, and I highly recommend, I think there should be a little bit of a disclaimer maybe, because you're going to get the book and you're going to be like, I'm not a triathlete.
Yeah.
First of all, there's an athlete in all of us. And there is information in this book for everyone.
And she even says, right, that something along the lines of, if you are an active woman, you're an athlete.
Right.
Like you might not be training. I'm not training for a triathlon. I'm training for life. That's
right. I think, but there's information in here, and let's be honest, this is not the end all book, but this is the book that resonated with us.
Right.
This is the book that I felt Dr. Sims was speaking my language.
Yes.
Exactly. It resonated with me, I mean, I think we've both even watched her TED Talk. We both have kind of mildly stalked her
on Instagram.
Right. And so I think, that's our story. That's why we're doing this. And so episode 2, we're diving in the book. So we are, if people want to go along with us on this journey, if you will, get the book, read part 1.
Yep. It's only 4 chapters.
It's only 4. It goes quick. It's great information. I mean, literally you'll reread sections because it's so good.
Yeah. And it's fast.
And and then we'll come back and you and I we'll discuss what we've read and what it means to us. And and there you go. And that's what we'll do. I mean, we'll hit up, and part 1 is like juicy. There's like a lot of juicy bits in there and so much stuff.
It's a lot of good stuff. I can't
wait.
It's gonna be fun.
I know.
It's gonna be good.
So everyone, get your book. Comment.
Like
yep.
Yeah. There we go. All our bookmarks.
Let's not just have a conversation between you and I. Let's go global. Let's get the conversation going. So people let's start talking, let's start engaging. And
what are your concerns? What are the things that
what's going on with everyone else? What is other people experiencing? What are things that have worked for you? Let's just get, again, it's conversation. We're not looking for answers. It's conversation.
Talk.
Novel idea.
We're just talking.
Yeah. Novel idea. Talking amongst ourselves.
But no, it's important. And I think, like you said earlier, you're not alone. The feedback that I got from the hormone group coaching program that I did was like, it was so good to hear everyone else having, not that it was good to hear everybody else having symptoms, but it was good to hear, I'm not alone in this. I'm not alone in feeling like I'm losing my mind. You're not losing your mind. It's completely natural what's happening. And we are the community to talk about it.
Right. All right. I'm excited. I'm going to
Yeah.
go reread, prepare for part 1,
Come on.
and that'll be dropping in a couple weeks.
Yep.
All right.
Stay
Good to see you,
tuned.
Jill.
Good to see you.
All
I'll
right.
see you for part 2.
All right. Bye, everyone.